when we were creating these websites, we had the platform, we give them the ability to change all the different things, add new pages, but we're finding that people are still leaving the placeholder title headlines on there, and they weren't really giving it enough information. But I know that like it's because our property managers didn't know how to optimize their website. So we're thinking when we approached Google with this problem, like how do we leverage our APIs? And one of the things is like if you have more data about like your properties, your portfolios, how you target, what people are searching for, the better content that you can create there. So like really niching down is really, really important.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the STR Investing Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mark Lumpkin, and today I'm here with the founder and CEO of Crafted Stays. You probably know this guy if you've been in the short-term rental industry, and if you don't, you'll know him really well at the end of this episode. So, Gil, would you say hi to everybody? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's great to be on the show, Mark. Thrilled to be here. I'm Gil, like Mark said. I'm the founder of Crafted Stays, short-term rental operator myself. We have a couple of properties out in Tennessee and in Branson. I've been in tech for the last, 15, 16 years. I feel kind of old now at this point, but I was previously a product manager at 6 different Silicon Valley startups, was a host myself. We wanted to get into direct bookings because after about that first year, we were making pretty good revenue. We actually exceeded our revenue goals, but we were about 95% dependent on Airbnb, I would say. And that just got us into a very uncomfortable state where we felt like we didn't have complete control over our business. So we tried to build our own direct booking website. I found that we can either use the PMS websites, or if we wanted anything better, we would have to hire an agency, and we'll spend probably $6,000 to $14,000 on a new website on top of that monthly fee. And that was kind of foreign to me because where I was in e-commerce. And if you wanted to build an e-commerce business in an e-commerce store, you wouldn't go hire a bunch of developers. You would sign up for a Shopify site, you'll add your products to it. By the middle of the afternoon, you'll have one of the highest converting websites out there. And I look back at our industry and we had nothing like that. So I coded the first version of Crafted Stays. I shopped it around with a bunch of my mastermind peers, and they collectively convinced me to leave my W-2. And I did. I had the best engineers that I've had the chance to work with over the last 15 years, and it's been phenomenal just helping more and more hosts become independent.
Dude, that's so cool. I love how you compared it to other industries, right? Which is so true. Oftentimes in the short-term rental space, we're doing stuff ass backwards compared to everybody else. You're like, wait, why would we do that? Why would everybody go build their own website? Why wouldn't they have tools like that? And so I love that you saw a need and you went for it. And you guys have been crushing it ever since, right? You've got a couple hundred websites now, and
it's been phenomenal to be able to see like even hosts that have just a single property like get to 30% direct bookings within that first year, or some of our larger property managers have hundreds of doors and see like 87% lift in conversion when they're already driving so much traffic to their website. It's just been phenomenal to be a part of like so many people's journeys through direct bookings, and it's getting better and better. Like one of the things I think is different from us than I would say like the more agency route is that since we build it as an underlying platform, we continue to improve it over time. So if we work with the large property managers that are running ads, they're driving social media traffic, they're driving this humongous amount of traffic, we're able to test certain things with them. And if the test goes well, the conversion drive up, then we'll roll out that change for everybody. So everybody gets to take advantage of that. So everybody's site matures over time. It gets better over time, rather than with a lot of agency builds, it degrades over time. Like unless you have someone that's continually looking at your, for instance, like a WordPress site, and you're having someone optimize that site on a regular basis, it's going to end up degrading. So it's been really fun being able to work with some of the larger property managers, but also enable a lot of like single unit property managers be successful too.
For sure. And we do a lot of the people listening to this podcast are individual hosts or investors that have done 1 or 2 or 3 properties. I wouldn't say very many large property managers are listening in. And so what's cool about you guys, like you said, is that you've got a platform that helps them do that. And I think a lot of people that own 1 or 2 or 3 properties think that direct booking is out of sight and just not obtainable because they think it's such a heavy lift, and it wouldn't be worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I've only got 1 property. And that's, from your experience, clearly not the case, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like why I started the business in the first place. I felt like there's a lot of best practices. There's a lot of there's this high barrier to entry for a lot of folks that are just starting off. You have a couple of doors. You may not want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a new website. You may not have the technical chops or the design chops to build it out. But when I look back, like if I look at mass majority of the websites are being created by agencies, they're all based on the same underlying structure or templates there. They're being They're stylized differently. They have different look and feels, different colors, but overall they have the same underlying structure of it all. And that's when I started to see a pretty high correlation between what we have in the hospitality back then and what I was seeing in the e-commerce space. Shopify actually doesn't have that many templates. It's only a handful of templates, but you can customize different looks and feels of it, and it looks completely different. So I just felt like there's just so much opportunity to help some of the smaller hosts that may not have thousands of dollars to spend and may not have the expertise to build it out on their own.
It's awesome, man. Good for you guys. Love to watch you over the last couple of years. You were managing, because you were a host yourself, right? So you were managing these properties remotely, or did you guys hire a property manager for your houses that were?
We're remote, yeah, and we've kind of like pulled back on some of the hosting business, because this is like my mind and space is really on helping more and more folks like build out their direct booking engine. So like our hosting side, like we still self-manage it, but it's like we're not growing. That's just not our focus right now. And it may be down the road, but yeah, it's just for us, it's just our own properties that we manage. It's our own vacation homes.
And as you were doing that, so that was really the driver, right? Because you mentioned being 95% on Airbnb. I'm assuming the other small percent was coming from like a VRBO, booking.com type platform. But if you were so dependent on the OTAs, was there a moment that happened? Was there something? Was there a dispute? Was there a bad guess that was like a moment? Or did you just kind of have that feeling all along that you didn't love that strategy of being so dependent upon them?
Yeah, and I think this has happened this is a couple years back now. And this is before, if you look back at 2025, there was a bunch of different changes that poured more salt onto the wound, I would say, like how they do reviews, how they do the cancellation policy, what information you can and cannot get from guests, like that. A lot of those changes happened in 2025. And then also like their fee structure change, moving to like 18.5%, like that all happened in 2025. But back when I started the company in 2023, we already started to see Airbnb specifically favor guests, and like that was pretty much their primary customer, and that's really what drove us. We didn't really have a guest that would, I would say, like take advantage of us or an issue with reviews per se, but it's just more so like we just didn't feel like we had a lot of control over our business, and we wanted to be able to deliver a really good experience to a guest where they want to come back specifically to us, and we don't want to have to worry about them going back on Airbnb and shopping elsewhere. If we delivered a really good experience, if they wanted to visit back to us, like we want to host them again.
I love that. And as the time that we're recording this, you are right. There's been some serious changes in the Airbnb platform, even as recently as last week. I think they just started taking everyone who had a hard cancellation policy and forcing them into the firm cancellation policy. You no longer even have that option anymore. We don't care if that's the cancellation policy you want. That's non-negotiable. It's no longer available to you. And so it's definitely like being in a bit of a toxic relationship with the girl that's way too hot for you, and she tells you what to do and you just do it, right? Because you have no other choice. And so maybe that's not the best analogy, but I do think that a lot of investors, property owners feel a bit stuck where they're just like, well, that's what Airbnb says. So it is what it is. I have no choice. And so I love that you guys were early helping people get away from that, at least being so dependent upon it. And your thoughts and opinion, are you ever completely able to get away from those type of platforms, or are you thinking more along the lines of supplementing and not just being so dependent on them with your own website?
I think it depends on like how much energy you pour into it. Like if you pour enough energy into it, like I've seen a lot of hosts that are primarily, the majority of their bookings are all direct. They deliver really good experiences. A lot of them are unique experiences as well too, but they just really nurture every single guest that comes through. And you can definitely, it's less for them supplemental. It's more definitely the primary channel that they want to pour their resources on. I would say one of the biggest differences that I've seen with Airbnb bookings versus direct bookings is that if you ever notice, like if you're on Airbnb, you're always chasing that next transaction. You're trying to get that next booking, whatever weekend, whatever weekday you're trying to fill up. And the one lever you can pull is to decrease price. You can definitely optimize your listing, but that's not going to move the needle in terms of getting that specific slot that you want booked up. Whereas if you think about direct bookings, you're constantly compounding really what you're doing there. So as you grow your email list, as you grow your social media following, as you get better and better at your messaging, as your SEO increases, as you get better at your ad spends, like all of those compound over time. So you'll start to see a lot of folks that in the first year, they'll get get 30%. And then they start to really, really pick things up because they start to add to their engine there. And so I think that's the biggest contrast between like investing into direct bookings versus investing into Airbnb, where Airbnb, you're basically thinking of it as transactional, whereas direct bookings is really everything you do compounds on each other.
And you get those repeat referral clients. We have a property in a vacation market in a beach town, and we've seen the same guests come back every year on the same weekend. They're like, yep, Johnsons are good for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on June 15th to the 22nd. It's like, that's just their vacation, their routine. And I love that about people that dive all into direct bookings, is that they're able to control your book of business, and you turn guests more into clients than customers, where they're like, yep, this was great. Thank you for taking care of me. We'll be back next year. We'll be back in 6 months. And I just don't think you get that on Airbnb. There's no loyalty to your property. It's just a unit on a website. They're loyal to the website, to Airbnb, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean that's for you to really like elevate the experience and make sure they have a really good stay and they remember you as a brand and not just another host that they end up staying with. I just came back from SLO, San Luis Obispo, and there's this one unique place that we originally found on Airbnb, and when we now book with them, we book directly with them. And it's really a very sweet couple, but they have this really nice place that our kids really, really enjoy. And so whenever we go down there for our annual summer vacation, like we go back to the same place and we book direct with them.
That's awesome. Do you feel like and this is a little bit of a selfish question and then we'll move on, but do you feel like the quality of the product and the uniqueness of the stay really helps determine the success of the direct booking strategy? Or can just the normal 3-bedroom, 2-bath template home that doesn't have much of a design do well with direct bookings?
I definitely think that like if you have uniqueness to the stay, that's more things for someone to talk about and to share with others, so that you definitely do get that extra leg up if you have a very unique place. But like for our properties, I don't know if they're unique in the sense of like we're not like super out there, but like all of our properties have some unique aspect to it. Like our Branson property has a tube slide, basically it's like a double triple bunk with one side that has a rock climbing wall, the other side has a triple bunk, has a tube slide coming from the third bunk down. One of our property has a pool, indoor pool. Another property has a mini golf in the front lawn and things. And they're not like really, really extravagant, but it really makes us kind of elevate against everybody else where they do want to come back to us. And then the other part of it is like really your hospitality side of things. Like I haven't seen a guest that done really well in direct bookings if they don't already have really, really good reviews. Like you need to be delivering on high quality hospitality for someone to want to come back to you or refer you to others. Like those are like non-negotiables. Like you need to be delivering good hospitality.
Okay, awesome. Let's dive into what you guys are working on now, because the world is changing rapidly, right? We just talked about Airbnb's bringing out all these new rules, regulations, changes. We've got AI everywhere. You and me were talking before we got on this call that I was like, hey, I'm having clients that are finding me through ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or one of these, AI platforms is telling them, hey, Mark is the expert at design and renovations. And so I know that that's coming. I've always known in the back of my mind that was coming for short-term rentals, and it's already here for like restaurants and things like that. But you guys are at the forefront of that. So would you kind of dive into your new product you launched, how it's leveraging these AI platforms, and we'd just love to hear more about it, and then we'll get into the details.
Yeah, so we launched last week on the 16th, basically our third generation of our platform. And it's leveraged highly by AI. We are a Google-backed company, so Google invests into us. We use a lot of their infrastructure. We use a lot of their Gemini APIs as well too, or the AI. And we've been working with them for the last 6 months. And one of the things that we saw was that a lot of folks who are now starting their vacation journey, not through the traditional Google search, but they're now going into Perplexity or ChatGPT to actually plan their stays. They're planning their itinerary, where they want to be, what areas to stay into, and possibly where they actually want to stay specifically. And so as we think about like more and more folks are actually now moving towards going through chat as the means of planning their trip, we want to make sure that our property managers that are building their websites on our platform, that they have a chance to be in those searches there. So we spend a lot of time to figure out like, okay, how do we need to optimize our websites to make sure that they come in search? And so when we went back and thought about this problem, we thought about what do we need to do to make sure that our sites are really structured in the right way. And there's a couple of things that kind of goes into it. One is that you want to make sure your site is well structured. And we've been doing this since probably September of last year, we've been spending a lot of time. We've done about 190 product releases since September of last year. And a lot of that, about a third of that has been in kind of the arena of SEO, AEO, and GEO. So SEO is like the traditional search stuff. If you go to google.com, you just search for something. And then you have AEO, which is answer engine optimization. So like now Google is giving you this little snippet of like a summary on top of all the searches to answer your questions. And that's AEO. So what you want to do is make sure that you're answering those questions and you get cited there. And then the last one is GEO, which is if someone's in Gemini, in Perplexity, in ChatGPT, how do you make sure that your properties or whatever your service is gets elevated into that? And so that's GEO. So you're being recommended from it. So as we think about this problem, we found out that in order for you to get really good at AEO and GEO, first off, you have to have good SEO because it's built on the same infrastructure as well, a lot of the same rails. But two, you need to now then structure your website so that these LLMs, when they're crawling your website, they're able to pick up all the things that they need to do. They need to understand your location of your properties, the amenities that you have, your description has to be structured in the right way. So we spend a lot of time really restructuring our pages to make sure that they are getting picked up by the crawlers when they send them out there. And then we thought about the content that people are producing on our website. So even after we've done all the structure, we wanted to make sure that when people are creating their websites, they are putting the right headlines in there, they're creating the right pages and so on. And we found that some property managers were using Claude quite well to do this. They were doing the research, they're trying to figure out who their guest avatar is. Probably not as much people are looking at external data like SEO data like Ahrefs, Yoast, SEMrush. There's a bunch of these like different third-party tools that provide you data on like what people are searching for and so on. So we try to figure out like how do we make it easy for any property manager to be able to surface inside of ChatGPT and Perplexity, for instance. And so what we did is now we've launched a product called Aria, and there's two parts of it. I'm going to talk about the Sightline report first. Well, basically what it does is it takes in all your portfolio data. So your descriptions, your markets, your amenities, all of that stuff. It takes in your reviews, so it knows what people say about you, what language are they using. They may mention that they stayed with their grandparents, their kids, whatever it is. And then we take those two pieces of information and we do third-party SEO analysis. And we try to figure out for that specific market, what are people searching for? And where do you have a chance of actually appearing? And we surface those results to you. And then we ask you, how do you want your brand to be represented? Because we don't want AI to dictate how we may want our brand represented. We may want to give input into it. So we ask a couple of questions about what your vision is, where do you see yourself in a couple of years, why you started this in the first place, who your best guests are. So there's a series of questions that we ask you. And then we run a second leg of the report. And at the very end of it, it'll tell you, these are your ideal guest avatars that you should be targeting. These are the keywords that have openings where you can start to target. Because if you just target like Blue Ridge Vacation Rentals, there's a bunch of different folks that are trying to target those key terms. But if you get really niche down to a specific key terms, then you're more likely to rank on those. And so we take all of that and we present it to you so that you know how to structure your website, you know what words to use. And then that goes to our second leg of our product that we just announced, which is rather than just dragging and dropping and building out your site, we now allow you to use AI to build out your site. So you can use natural language. You can say, build me a landing page for XYZ. And it'll read that Sightline report. It knows what tones you use, what words to use, what words not to use, and it'll build out the entire site for you. It can build out new pages. It can help you edit things as well too. And we're getting better and better at things as well too. So we're constantly tuning and seeing like where we're hitting the mark, where we need to make adjustments. But all in all, we're trying to make sure that folks have the right tools to even have a chance to appear in search. So that's what we announced last week.
Dude, that's awesome. Good for you guys. I love that. I think that AI has become a, like, obviously it's the hot topic, but there's so much just generic information. Hey, you should just use AI, but then there's no actionable items behind that. Oh, we need AI in our business. There's no actionable items. And so it's really cool how you guys are using it to elevate what you were already doing to stay ahead of the changing world that we have in front of us. I also thought it was really interesting how you touched on really niching down your property and figuring out your online marketing strategy using AI and helping AI find you based upon your property's specific, your guest avatar, what your guests have said about you in reviews and all that stuff. I think is pretty powerful. I'm playing with, ChatGPT right now as you're talking, searching a market that we're going to and seeing what it was coming up with. And it's very interesting how it searches quite differently based upon the prompts, based upon what I ask it. and said, "Hey, I'm traveling with kids, little kids, da 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 da," and I'm asking it questions, and it's really niching down the search results, which is not something you've ever had in the world of just like Google or standard online searches, right? If I go Google what's an Airbnb I stay at and what's a good short-term rental to stay at in Gulf Shores, Alabama, the first 10 prompts are go to Airbnb. And the next five are go to VRBO. And then I might grab a couple of large property managers who've invested a whole lot of time and energy into a website. But do you think that that is the biggest game changer here? Is this going to allow the little guys who are niched down and really leverage this to compete and take a lion's share of this? Or do you think that at some point this still becomes an arms race and the big dogs are just going to own all of these searches as well?
No, because if you think about like some of the key terms that Airbnb, VRBO, they might be fighting for, they're not going to be niching down all down to like for some of your properties, they may be tailored towards kids between the ages of 6 and 12. And you have amenities driven towards that, and you have messaging content towards that. Airbnb is trying to promote their entire platform. They're trying to be ubiquitous for everybody, but they're not going to be able to like niche down on specifically this. So if you, for instance, go in ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I have two boys with me. We're trying to plan a trip. We want something that's memorable for them." And you go in there, Airbnb is not going to have content specifically for that type of stay. But imagine if you have a property or a set of property that is tailored towards that. And you create content about all the different things to do, how to pack for things, and like really get down to the detail of like thinking about like what do people ask for when they're planning such a trip. And you're constantly feeding this, you're constantly writing blog articles and so on, then you're more likely to appear in search than even Airbnb would.
It's almost like there's too many details and too much nuance to this for them to own that space. And so the more detail you have, the more niched you are, the more likely you are to pop up when that person is looking for what you have. Because Airbnb can't own every word, everything. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, and like neither does the chats. Like they have so much information about how you're thinking about things. Like when you plan for a trip, they're probably asking you questions. You're probably prompting, like you're giving it additional information about like the things that you really care about, so that you can get the most out of it. And they're trying to deliver the most precise answer that answers yours most concretely. Though, so if you can align to what people are searching for, where the demand in the market is, and you have a product that you can market toward that specific niche, that's going to go really, really far. So like, and that's one of the biggest like drivers for us to create this, because when we were creating these websites, we had the platform, we give them the ability to change all the different things, add new pages, but we're finding that people are still leaving the placeholder title headlines on there, and they weren't really giving it enough information. But I know that like it's because our property managers didn't know how to optimize their website. So we're thinking when we approach Google with this problem, like how do we leverage our APIs? And one of the things is like if you have more data about like your properties, your portfolios, how you target, what people are searching for, the better content that you can create there. So like really niching down is really, really important.
It's awesome, man. My next question is really around like, do you think this will change in the future where these large language models are allowing people to run ads? And I know right now it's all organic, right? They're just pulling based upon all the different data points that they're able to find and providing you the best available answer based upon that. But do you think that we get into a world where these platforms become heavily paid and people are just able to kind of buy their way into getting answers on some of these things?
Oh yeah, I mean that's already happening. Like ChatGPT has already announced, and actually they're already starting to like release beta of ads on that. Claude has actually taken a very different stance where they're focused more on paid users, and where they're like, we want to deliver quality results and we're not going to try to let ads get into it. So ChatGPT, I think, is going to stay away from it, but I think there's a good chance that even Perplexity may get into ads, and Grok is already like being part of the X family there. Like their X is all about ads. Like that's how they generate that's how they generate their revenue. So I have a high suspicion that Grok is going to go down that same path there. But basically, if you're not paying for their service, most likely those platforms are going to be serving you ads, because at the very end of the day, it costs a lot of money to run these LLMs, and they need they need ROI.
It's interesting, man. It's so cool. How long did it take you guys to put this all together? Like, obviously, you're an entrepreneur, you're a pioneer in the space. You guys are doing things before big changes happen. Is this something you guys have been working on for a while?
Yeah, for at least 6 months. In the very beginning, it was very rudimentary where we were working with some of our larger clients and we were helping them on the SEO. And so we would send out our own crawlers onto their own websites that we built, and we had it analyzed. We use third-party tools to try to stitch it together. So we were piecemealing a lot of these things together, and it ended up becoming our MVP for a lot of these things. So probably started a little bit before that, but like once like the actual coding towards this has probably been the last 6 months or so. So it's still relatively new. We're constantly tuning. We're getting really, really good feedback on like how people want to change things on their websites and how they use our chatbots and what other information that we're providing them and what types of questions do we want to ask. So like I bet like this is going to evolve over the next few months, and I'm just super excited to really have a really good foundation to build off of.
Cool. I know it's super new, but what are you thinking on percentages? Just like forward thinking, do you think that if somebody's at a 50% direct booking rate right now and almost all of it's coming through social media and Google, do you see that trend pushing way more towards AI models, or do you think that it's a small percentage of it? What's your kind of vision of what percentage of these bookings will come through AI models for a lot of these people?
I think it depends on like in terms of like if you're saying like social media and so forth, like they're probably investing pretty heavily on that, and that's going to continue to build. But more so like I see a lot of folks that don't get any traffic on SEO and don't get any traffic on AEO, and it's really them to be able to build that foundation where a good chunk of their like first year traffic is coming from organic searches, upwards of like 30, 40, 50%. So like we have some pretty audacious goals, and we've seen some pretty big successes already with some of our larger property managers that we've been doing more of this like hand holding piecemeal high touch, because that's how we learn. Like when we do high touch experiments and we look at all the data and we see what the results are, that's where we learn, oh, okay, these are the assumptions that we did and that are right, and these are the ones that are wrong, and we continue to tune it. So yeah.
So what's the future hold for us, just as in a peeling back broader version of the short-term rental industry? What do you think the things that investors and hosts and property managers should be on the lookout over the next year or two, and that they should be cognizant of and be prepared for?
I think overall we've seen this in the industry as a whole, is like the industry is really maturing. If you look back like the last 3-4 years, a lot of the hosts that had basic stays, they're not doing all that well, and they're continuing to not do well. And so the ones that are rising are the ones that are investing into high design, the ones that are thinking about really amenitizing their place properly, thinking about their ideal guest avatars. And I think like those property managers that are in that zone of like, okay, these are my sets of guests, these are what are they looking for, those are going to be ones that do well on platform and off platform.
I love it, man. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can visit us at craftedstays.co. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Gil Chan. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I do a lot of research. I do a lot of posting on AEO and GEO. So if you're wanting to learn what's happening in the industry, I post a ton about that stuff. So if you're interested in learning, just follow me there.
Okay, I'm gonna drop your links in the show notes. We have a mutual friend too. Glenn, you know Rachel with Up Close Marketing. I think you guys have talked to her a couple of times.
Yeah. We have lots. I think we have probably a handful of mutual friends. Yeah.
We definitely do, man. I'm glad we could connect again on the pod. Are you planning on being at any events in the future? Any STR events coming to you?
I just came back from Scale UK. So I was in the UK, and they had like a Scale AI conference where they're talking about AI use in hospitality. So it was interesting. The next big one that I'll be going to will be Verma. I tried to do all the big events. I didn't do VR Nation this year just because we're preparing for this launch. But yeah, I'm pretty active in the conference circuit.
We'll catch you at the next conference. Gil, thanks for coming on, man. It was great to connect with you. Super interesting. I've seen it in my own business, getting leads, getting opportunities, getting deals, finding clients through AI models. And it's pretty awesome when it does happen. I think you're going to have to be intentional about that, because it is probably it's the next arms race. Like you said, it's already here. Some businesses are running ads on certain platforms, and people that are going out and getting it are leveraging these tools. And so if you don't leverage it, then you're just going to be left in the dust. And so really cool that you guys have created a product that helps hosts do that. And then it just kind of basically piggybacks off the great product that you already have offered to the market for many years. So that's cool. Thank you for coming on, man. Any parting words for anybody? Anything you want to leave them with?
No, I think continue to niche down, continue to know your ideal guest avatar. It's going to do phenomenally well on the design side and then also on the marketing side. So I think those hosts that really take advantage of that and really sink their teeth into it, they're going to do phenomenally well.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man. Guys, thank you for tuning in to the STR Investing Podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. We will get you with another Monday Market next Monday, and we'll hit you with another full guest episode next Friday. Thanks.